On today's episode of Life After Sunday, we're sitting down with a man who spent the last 15 years behind the scenes helping shape how college athletics are communicated and celebrated. Daniel Gallegos is currently in his 5th year as Director of Athletic Communications at Arkansas Tech University, and his career spans multiple NCAA Division II programs, national committees, and championship tournaments. Daniel is also a husband, dad, and follower of Christ. We're talking with Daniel today about the real work that goes into promoting student athletes, what it's like to lead communications in the age of live streams and social media, and how his faith and family keep him grounded in a high-demand role. Let's go. What is up, gentlemen?
Hey.
Daniel and a long familiar face, Mr. Eric Duval.
Back again.
Back again.
Hey, I ain't near as pretty as Mike, and I ain't near as wise as Bob, but I'm just working with what I got, okay? What's up,
Hey, you're
everybody?
sitting in Mike's seat right now.
I am. And I did the traditional Mike Norman pre-show check for the mic check.
Oh,
We
yeah.
won't get into that, but
Yeah.
Mike
We got
knows
that
what I'm
down.
talking about.
Yeah,
We
the
got it
mics
down.
work. The mics are working, so we're good.
Mics are working. We're all good. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. How are
Appreciate
you,
it.
sir?
Thank you. I'm doing good. Thank you all for the invite.
So we're excited to have you. I think we're going to be have a jam-packed episode. And before we jump in too far, if you haven't already, hit the follow button, subscribe to the channel. It'll take just a second, and it'll help more men discover our show and what we're talking about, and hopefully bless them as well. Now, long ago when we first started the podcast, we created a question that we ask every guest.
Okay.
I didn't put it on your sheet because this is
On the spot,
on
baby.
the spot.
Yep.
All right.
And so, Daniel, if you could give 20-year-old Daniel some advice, any advice, what would you give him?
I'm having to go back a little further in the years than what I would like.
Buy
Back to
Bitcoin.
20. No, that's tough. That fake money is, it's
Yeah,
make-believe money. 20-year-old me. I would think like one of the biggest things is just reminding yourself to have confidence in the things that you do and not be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to get out of a comfort zone every now and then, but anything you do, if you do it with conviction and you believe in it, you can be successful in a lot of different things. That holds back a lot of people, I think, is the fear of failure and stuff like that. So I'd probably want to let myself know, like, don't be as afraid to fail. Like if you want to dream big, go for it.
Yeah.
And do work hard and just be confident in what you do and don't worry about what other people might think about you. It's okay to go against some of the norms and things like that. But as long as you got that conviction and belief and confidence, you can accomplish a lot of things. So that would probably be what I would tell myself at that point.
That's really good because, I think we've all seen it in we all do different jobs, but in our job, like I've seen it in my job that guys are afraid to apply for a job or to move up or do different things because what you said, they're afraid to fail. And these are 40, 50-year-old guys, and that fear of failure oftentimes paralyzes guys.
Yeah, no, it is, and there's a lot, especially when you get to those stages of life where you become a husband, you become a father, you feel that inherent pressure of what it is to be a man and all those things that you got to provide for. Failure is very, very scary.
Yes.
You think about what happens if I lose my job, those types of things are just all the things that you can't control can really take over and paralyze you because there is all that weight and pressure.
That's right. And
You got to support your family in those types of things. You can't just, be a bum and think you're going to have a have a good life, or what you really can, your full potential.
Yeah.
So it's tough because
I like what he said, man, about you asked the question about your 20-year-old self. And I thought about 20-year-olds out there walking around right now.
Yeah.
They need that, brother. Confidence, be bold, go against the grain. I like when he said that because there's a lot of going along
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get along going on right now. 'Cause that's the way
You just get in line and follow.
kind of get in line.
you know?
Yeah. And so that right there, brother, is that's what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah, and not creating like conflict. I think I'm terrible at conflict. I don't like it really much at all. But I think there could be some healthy conflict in pushing back on what people expect certain people to do, or what you even should do at a certain age.
Yeah.
I got married, relatively young, in my early 20s and stuff. But even still, like nowadays, that might not be the path that somebody needs to take. Like,
Right.
really invest in your career or something, in your 20s, and have a family in your 30s or things like that. Like, there's not a set path that you have to follow. But yeah, and it's just, you don't have to go along with everything,
like that.
You have to get out of that high school mentality of wanting to fit in,
Right.
and be okay doing your own thing. Like I tell our kids all the time, and just watching them kind of grow up, it's like, man, they are wonderfully weird.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's okay.
And it's perfect. It's great. Like, I mean, that's an absolute compliment.
Heck
And
yeah.
we, my wife and I tell them too, like, we hope you stay that way. Stay weird. Be you, because it's awesome. And don't like conform to other things. So it's a big thing, but it is hard.
That's huge.
Like
And
that.
the most successful people have done the exact opposite of that. They jump and they're not afraid of fear. And then a lot of times they're successful, a lot of times they're not. But the successful story never has a thing of, oh, I just got in line and followed everybody.
Yep.
You don't see that.
And it just happened. Yeah,
It just
that's
happened.
the
That's
way
not how it
Yeah.
works.
No, life isn't perfect. And actually earlier today, I was talking with my daughter. She spent most of the day with me today. And I was telling her something that one of my cousins who had a small business and stuff, told me that he didn't like to hire people that had a 4.0 GPA. Not that he wouldn't, and those people aren't going to be successful, because obviously you get all A's and stuff like that. But he said that to him on a resume was more of a red flag than it was a positive, from the standpoint of that person might not know what it's like to fail and how to overcome that.
That makes that's a big
Yeah, and that's that counterintuitiveness too of, you're taught, hey, go get good grades, get the best grades you can, be as smart as you can. You still want to achieve those,
Yeah.
but you also got to know what it's like to fail.
Yeah.
And that kind of led into another thing earlier today. All these life lessons. Our son was playing with a new game, and I guess whatever it was, but my daughter did it, and he was upset because the time he got in figuring it out was not as quick as he wanted to. And he got real mad because he said that she made it too hard and threw a fit, like a massive fit. So we let him kind of go and do his thing for a little bit. And then I went into his room after 5 or so minutes. And what I wanted to impart on then when I talked to him was, things are going to be hard. You don't want them to be easy all the time,
Yeah.
because then you're not going to get any better.
You get complacent.
Exactly.
Heck
You
yeah,
know,
man.
so like you gotta, and like the people that end up being great at stuff, they get there by doing a lot of hard things a lot, like all the time.
Over and over.
Exactly.
Repetitive hard things. Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually they'll get to the point where you kind of maybe get to like you master it kind of a thing, and it becomes easy, or you make it look easy
Right.
with whatever you're doing. But the road to get there might not be easy, and you got to be okay to fail, or at least know that that's a possibility, and how do you bounce back from it? Because that's where most lessons are learned, is
Yes.
through failure
that's
and
good
coming
stuff.
back.
You don't. We were talking about this last night at church. It's like growing doesn't happen when everything's easy.
No.
Growing happens when things are hard and you get
right.
broke down. Then you build back stronger. And
Yeah.
we have a motto in our house. We say a lot. We do hard things.
Yep.
And that's the truth. I mean, you got to embark on hard things and not be, like you said, not be afraid to do hard things, not be afraid to fail.
Yep.
And that's great advice. I love
Man,
it.
I know we're going to talk some baseball today, but my man Daniel comes out, shows his fastball right off the bat, and the
Coming in.
fastball plays, baby. It's got
Guns
run on it.
blazing.
It's
Let's
it's
go.
not perfect, but these are things that you just encounter in life, and a lot of it too is, I think about stuff. I try to think on how I want my kids to grow up, and what I want their thinking to be, and deal with stuff. So a lot of that is figuring out, learning from my mistakes, and where things wish I could have been better, or had somebody impart that into me. So
And
But,
that's our whole goal of this even podcast is to help men like that may not have a group of friends to talk to, and they may, feel isolated, and like hopefully somebody will resonate with that and say, I need to hear that, and they can go get the courage to do that with their own children.
Yeah.
That's our whole goal here.
Yeah, and that's fantastic because a lot of it, you can get caught in the I'm the only one going through this struggle, especially as guys.
Oh, I
Been
lived
there.
that.
Yeah,
Been
absolutely.
there 1,000
No matter what the
Yes.
situation is, like that's just kind of how guys are kind of hardwired, I think. And then once you start hearing other guys, you're like, hey man, that dude's struggling with that too, or
Yes.
you fall short, and it's just it's crazy too because you see think of like the generational stuff. So like I think of like my grandparents and that generation, like where they didn't show the love and affection very much, and it kind of
Right.
trickles down and everything else. But I mean, the way I try to treat my kids, it's like the opposite of that. Like show them that love, show them that affection, but also be able to be disciplinary with them when you need to. But
Yeah.
Fine line. Yep.
I equate
Yeah.
that a lot to like I know a lot of kids in general that have like an absent father, like can they really receive the love of Christ because they haven't had that man in their life that is able to send them to their room,
Yeah.
mad, give them a spanking, and then 2 hours later go give them a hug and a kiss goodnight
Yep.
and tell them I love them and everything's going to be okay.
Yep.
Like if you don't have that, can you really respect because that mirrors Christ.
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You should. That's what you want to strive
That's
for.
what you strive to do.
Man, we're starting off good. It's good.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
It's a fun question. So you've been behind the scenes for a long time in sports. Do you still get nervous before a big game or a big event?
Yes. Not as much as I used to. But a lot of that has to do
Pre-game
with,
jitters.
yeah, a lot of that has to do with, thankfully, because I struggled with anxiety a lot growing up, and, it was kind of debilitating at times, and just, you could work yourself up and really make yourself sick and, and just not good. So like you seek out that professional help and, get on the right type of medication, things that work for you, that type of thing, to where like now, thankfully, I'm kind of more like on a, don't get too high, don't get too low.
Right.
Really leveled out, which is great because you can manage those a lot better. But there's, I mean, those things where the expectations are high.
Yeah.
Just from like a job performance standpoint, you have that pressure. But then just as like a fan, if it's like
There's the
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big game. You're like, man, like, God, got to win this. Like those types of things. Like the Tech baseball team last weekend of the year. They didn't really think about it too much, but they had to sweep Harding to win the conference championship outright in the regular season. And so you're kind of nervous about that going in. But, I think a lot of that nervousness, if you don't get a little bit nervous, you don't care too much.
It's probably time to do something else.
Maybe, yeah, you know what I mean? But like to where it's just like, but a lot of that, like, it's a good kind of anxiousness now.
Yeah, and
a
that's
good
part
kind of
of the-
nervousness.
in my mind, that's part of the beautiful thing of sports.
Yeah.
And kind of the magic, so to speak. Or it is to me. Maybe I'm look at it a little bit like a child, kind of childhood wonder to me still. At 51 years old, it's still there. The nervousness and the tension and the passion and all
Baseball's
that.
a kid's game, baby.
That's what I mean. Yeah, especially baseball for
Especially
me.
baseball.
Anybody knows me knows that. But
Yeah.
like my wife will look at me like I have like four heads when I'm standing in front of the TV, doing this surrender cobra.
Yeah.
Just begging. I'm telling the hitter what's coming.
Yeah.
And
Can't
they
control
still
a
swing
thing.
and miss, and then I throw a fit.
Like we could do better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I totally would have hit that curveball right there.
Right.
I'd have been sitting on it, baby.
But it's
awesome.
I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really cool moments, big games, and just other things, like even going back this last I guess right before baseball, we were able to have Terry Francona come in and do the first pitch.
into that.
Spoke as the
Awesome.
first pitch guy, and I talked with Coach Dawson. It was, hey, who do you want to help kind of facilitate this thing? And it was a really cool thing about Dawson. He was just like, no, man, you're doing it. Absolutely. 100%. Like, he didn't even give me an option to go find somebody else to interview him. And so, like, it's like, geez, you look back and like, it was like for me to y'all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a dude who's
amazing.
going to the, Hall of Fame
Hall of
as a
Fame.
manager, and
Yeah.
you know, all those types of things. So really cool
huge.
experiences in sports. And it's crazy because if anybody knows me, knows that growing up, I was not good at sports.
I see. Okay.
I think you said good thing you said growing
that.
up, because I know Eric wants to talk about some things. Go ahead and talk about.
So, man, I want to hear about growing up, man. And
Yeah.
I was going to, because you just said you weren't good at sports. Is that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, same here. But I always loved them since my furthest memories.
Yep.
I've always loved sports. I mean, my daddy raised me to hate Texas. You know, I was raised on Razorback everything.
Yep.
And so obviously, you know, I'm a huge Razor, but sports in general, and I've always been drawn to baseball.
Yeah.
So what about you? I mean, was it that way for as a kid? Did you grow up loving sports? What sport?
Yeah.
All those things. Tell me about being a kid, a Daniel kid.
Pretty much. And what's kind of crazy about it, if you look at everybody in like my immediate family, I'm the only one who liked sports. So it's not like I had that influence on me, you know, from like a dad or, you know, things like that. It was just kind of one of those that feel like it just happened organically, and it happened through friendships is, you know, the best way I can describe it. Like all of my friends that I got to become friends with, like in elementary school that I can remember, they had something to do with sports. You know, and it was maybe like their parents that were really passionate fans. And so kind of just being around them and seeing that, and then even just being on little league teams and stuff, like that was always where I could make friends the easiest, was through sports. And I loved that aspect of it, because even though I didn't play much and wasn't very good, I just always loved being a part of it. And that's what sports always allows you to do. It always allows you to be a part of a team.
Yes.
And, you know, even if you're not the star player out there, and I would say even if I was talented enough to kind of be in that role, I probably wouldn't have succeeded anyways, because of all those anxieties that I dealt with and everything else. And I was much more comfortable being kind of just that, you know, hopefully a really good teammate and somebody to help encourage and
scenes.
and inspire people. And it's just, there was always something about it. It was just like, it was so cool seeing all the crowds and watching it on TV, and, you know, just, it felt like it was always there for me as a kid, even though I didn't have that influence at home, but I wanted to do it. And I remember, you know, telling my dad, cause I got real big into just watching ESPN nonstop. I don't do it anymore. I hardly watch. I couldn't stand watching ESPN anymore these days.
Same here.
And I never thought I would
the
say
same.
it. It's not.
Yeah.
Never thought I would say it. But like I'd watch SportsCenter all the time, and it was just always on. And my dad would be like, "What are you doing?" Like, you know, and I remember telling him like, well, "I'm gonna get paid one day to do this."
Let's go.
You know,
is
and
so
so that
cool.
was kind of that little goal, you know, and that kind of led me to, I like to write and things like that. So it's like, oh, okay, sports journalism. I wanted to be on ESPN, kind of a thing. And all those things kind of led into one another. And yeah, it's always been a part of my life.
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that was everywhere I've lived. It's been nice. Actually, there hasn't been a professional team in that state. So it's been good to, from that standpoint of like, I got to kind of pick my teams that I would root for.
That's awesome.
You know, and one of them was, so for like football, it was the Packers. Cause again, through those relationships, I had a friend.
Cheesehead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got one too.
Should have had him bring it.
I should have. Yeah. I had a friend, his family, and this is in Albuquerque, his family was from Wisconsin. And they were huge Packer fans, and they had the stuff all over their house. And so, and just hanging out with them, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Green and gold looks good together and all that. And that first year I really started watching it, because everybody out in Albuquerque was either like a Cowboys fan, a Raiders fan, Niners, things like that.
They're kind of in the middle of Cowboy land.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
California,
Yep.
you know.
And so, and I was kind of like at that time, I remember just being like, and I don't want to do what everybody else does. You know, like there's too much of that.
What time frame was that?
So I'm about to say,
Okay.
the year that they won the Super Bowl, first one in New Orleans. So it just coincided. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's the team I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or that's
They're
my favorite
good. They
team.
won the Super Bowl, and
First year total bandwagon fan initially, but then just stuck with it. You know, so that was kind of that football story. And then,
are you still a Packers fan today?
oh, absolutely. Yeah,
That's all
absolutely.
nice.
Don't even
Very
have
cool.
don't even have a second favorite football team.
It's kind of ironic that way long time ago, green and gold.
Yeah.
And now
Oh, I know.
you get to rep the green and gold in your job.
Right
with
now,
Arkansas
yeah.
It's a
Tech. How
perfect
cool is
match.
that?
Yeah, my wardrobe has pleasantly improved, as opposed to some of the other colors I was having to wear there for a while. But yeah, so you get to kind of like pick, what professional teams you want to follow, and at the time it was like a lot of like kids want to follow like the teams that are doing good and things like
Yeah.
that, and so a lot of that started there. But then when I decided to like really become a fan, then you stick with stuff.
Yeah.
And you're gonna endure being bad, and like, yeah, some of those, 4-12 year I remember with the Packers was tough and all that stuff. But yeah, it's kind of just been a part of my life. And
What about favorite baseball team growing up?
growing up,
It's a big moment here.
this
Daniel.
is yeah.
It's huge.
Okay? It's a big
Yeah.
moment. The show can go a couple of directions here.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
kidding.
I had a point in my life, and a lot of it was just kind of what you saw on TV a lot was back when like the Red Sox and Yankees rivalry was really, really hot. I leaned more into the Red Sox and really liked that story and identified with those guys. Loved Pedro Martinez, loved Manny Ramirez,
Awesome.
David Ortiz, like
Yeah.
some of those ones.
Poppy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I moved to Arkansas, obviously it was get a lot of Cardinals games, get a lot of Rangers games. So then I started really like following those because those were the ones you can get locally. They weren't necessarily like the national games. And then so it just
can't
kind
get
of
them locally
switched
now.
to, I know, yeah, you got to pay a little extra. Again, through another friendship, in high school, his family, they were big Cardinals fans.
Yep.
And so through hanging out with them, I was like, all right, like, let me make this my team now. And kind of,
Yeah.
deserted
You're
the
in
Red
good
Sox
company.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you're safe here.
There we go.
sir.
Okay.
You're safe. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just like you find that and through those friendships and stuff. And yeah, now it's, it kind of becomes your team and fandom.
Through like recent years, I guess I would say within the last 5 years, like I've always been a Cardinals fan growing up. Like you said, it was on TV, and you hear that a lot. Like young kids, their favorite sports teams is whatever they can see on TV. Especially a long time ago when you didn't have cable, you had 4
Yep.
channels, and
Yeah.
your favorite team was whatever was coming on the
The
TV.
Braves or the Cubs, probably.
Yep.
But Wasp, the stance that
Special guest.
the Rangers have taken on all this political mess have really made me become a fan.
It's just baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
just
just baseball.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is in the last 5 years, I found myself gravitating. I'm still a diehard Cardinals fan,
Yeah.
but their second place is the Rangers, and I just like watching them play and
Yeah.
what they stand for and all that.
And something I've noticed, and I don't know about you, Daniel. Of course, I'm a little older than both of y'all.
Oh man,
My daddy did it the old school way. It was on the radio, baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dude,
St. Louis radio.
he lived in St. Louis. For
Yeah, my dad lived in St. Louis.
Oh, that's awesome.
When my parents divorced, I was like 12 or so. Moved to St. Louis. My stepmother worked for the brewery. Doesn't get much more St. Louis than that. So I spend my summers at the ballpark just all the time, And when you listen to games on the radio, so I was Cardinals all the way. And like he said, the last 5 years or so, for a couple of reasons, just some of the political stuff, the paywalls behind every single thing you do now, and then the rise of college baseball.
Yeah.
The quality of the game of college baseball. I have shifted. Now I'm still diehard Cardinal all the way. I still follow. The fact that Mason Wynns never wore a Razorback jersey makes me sick.
He would have looked good.
Yeah, Tink Hint, same
it would have
thing.
looked real good.
Yeah, it would have looked beautiful. But anyway, I found myself navigating or being drawn to the pureness of college baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of some of the things you were saying earlier. So,
Yeah.
And I think too, for me, I'm college baseball all the way. Now that college baseball is over, that's when I start really because I start diving into the MLB.
Yeah.
And
there's still 300 games left in the season.
Yeah,
So.
and I pick up. I love watching like old Razorbacks. I follow them all over wherever they're at. I like watching their games, looking at their stats and all that stuff. So it's fun.
it is cool, and like just the different paths that can be taken in baseball, especially when they get to Major League Baseball. You could trace it back, and like what you're even saying of like that guy should have, like, he was committed to go to this college and then signed out of high school and things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, it's the college game is fantastic. You know, like we were talking a little bit before we started, you know, and just the difference of playing in the minor leagues and trying to work your way through that versus what you could do on a weekend, even midweek with some of these fan bases.
Yeah.
You know, going and playing college baseball and like, I mean, LSU, this still stings, but I mean, out of their bullpen, they're bringing in dudes that are throwing 100 back to back to back, you know, and it's like, dang, like that, you're facing major league quality arms
Every
and that
week.
type of stuff. Yeah. And like the caliber is just so high.
And you can't mimic those at bats
No.
that you get in college to help you when you get in.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
try to make your way through the minors and all that, which is a total grind. And like we said, why not come to Arkansas or LSU or Mississippi State, A&M, and live like a king for 3 years instead of going somewhere right on a bus and eating a packed lunch.
And I know a lot of it's changing the college landscape and working in college. I see it more, you know, with NIL and being able to pay players and stuff like that. But there is something though that it just changes. And I think it's just human nature. But once you start getting actually like really paid to do something,
Yeah.
you're not necessarily as concerned with the front of the jersey as you are as the back, name
Yeah,
on the back. And,
that's good.
and it's
Wow. Yep.
at least right now, and hopefully it doesn't, you know, shift too drastically, but you get a lot of that in college athletics still. It's fading a little bit, but at least in baseball, you kind of feel like, you know, it's such a hard game anyways. Those guys are grinding, and you got pitchers that, you know, not literally, but they're coming close to, you know, throwing their arm out.
Yeah.
Throwing their arm off to, my team needs me to throw a 140 pitch complete game to save a bullpen because we're in the losers bracket
Right.
of this tournament, you know, like those types of things. And then knowing like, this is the end of my road playing baseball. I may not have a career professionally.
Tough.
I'm gonna give it all out for these guys in this team, this university. So there's still a lot of that purist nature that is still in college baseball, which is a lot of fun to follow and be a fan of.
And you said the Red Sox a while ago. You'll be happy to know a former Tech baseball player's favorite team is
Yeah.
the Red Sox.
Who's that?
Sawyer.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr.
I never
Sawyer
talked to him about
Delston.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had that appeal,
Boy
you know.
named Sue.
That boy named Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a guy, which again, this is the stuff that gets cool, and when the world gets smaller and some of the cool things you get to be a part of. When I was at the University of New Mexico for a couple of years, one of the guys who was a pitcher there is now pitching for the Red Sox.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So Justin Slayton,
Okay.
and he's in the back end of their bullpen, and it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. You
I
know,
had a guy at work the other day come through one of my training classes, intern in the engineer's office, Cade Cartwright,
yeah,
pitcher for Tech. We talked and stuff, and this was after Gage Wood threw the no-hitter or whatever, and he was like, oh, yeah, man, I used to train with Gage in Little Rock.
Right.
And he texted me after the game and all this stuff, and I was
That's
like,
awesome.
wow, you know, like,
yeah.
What a
Amazing.
moment that was, by the way.
It's crazy. Oh, phenomenal.
Do you have like when you were coming up as a kid? Do you have a moment that sticks out to you as like your favorite sports moment, or something that just is kind of etched in your brain? I have a couple, but I'd love to hear what
Personal or just
whatever, just something that stands out that you remember and you're never going to forget.
Yeah, there was, this was in high school, when I went to Sylvan Hills High School, and they were really good at baseball. And it was my junior year that we ended up winning the state championship. I was on the team. I didn't really do much to contribute to the cause, except for the fact that I was game one pitch clicker. So I would keep the pitches for game one starter. That guy ended up getting drafted, pitched in the big leagues. No big deal.
no big deal.
Yeah. I always tell people, I was his pitch clicker, would let the coach know when he got to 80. But that year, I don't know if y'all remember Travis Wood?
I'd say again, Travis Wood.
Travis Wood.
The Cubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He mostly known for playing for the Cubs, pitching for the Cubs, but he pitched at Bryant High School. And my junior year was his senior year. And there was another reliever that they had, and ended up going to Arkansas and played professional, but they were really good. And back when Arkansas only had 5A as the highest classification, so we were in that same class with them, and we played them in the state tournament, and they were hosting the state tournament. And Travis Wood was like, all the scouts were out to watch him, right? And was going to get drafted. I think he got picked up in the first round probably. But Bryant did not pitch him in the semifinal game against us because they were going to save him for the state championship game.
I don't think that must have not ended well.
They did not advance to the state championship game.
Oh, man.
Which was really cool because even like leading into that, again, we're playing at Bryant, and you know, which still I don't get, but you do the coin toss to figure out who's home team or whatever. And our coach Tipton, who's now just took the job at Pulaski Academy, I think, getting back into coaching baseball. He won the toss, and he goes, we're home teaming and we're taking the third base dugout, which was their dugout.
Nice.
And so they had to like get their stuff out of their dugout, move it over to the first base dugout.
Wow.
It was like a total like assertion of dominance and like, you know, but they were still really good. But it was a cool moment to see that of like,
Yeah.
you're at your place,
That's
but
awesome.
we're the home team and we're taking the home dugout. But it came in late, and they didn't pitch Travis because they were holding him out, you know, and but it ended up being like going to the last inning, like the seventh, and we were down. And I think I remember it was like 9-1-2 in the order coming up, and our guys just rallied, and we ended up walking it off.
Awesome. It's
And
beautiful.
there was a really
So
cool
beautiful.
picture in the Democrat Gazette of like the play sliding in and everything else. And yeah, being a part of those moments was so awesome. Because again, I didn't play.
Yeah.
You know, I was the kind of guy, in a quick story too about Coach Tipton. The following year, you know, we were still pretty good. And we were having a little bit of a lull in the season, and now we're seniors. And so the other guys in my class and all that, and having a tough practice, and Coach Tipton stops it and kind of brings everybody together, and he's trying to rally all the seniors and stuff like that. And he's just trying to motivate him. He goes, like, look at Gallegos over there. He wants to play, probably won't, but he wants to play. He's out here, he's working hard, you know, all this stuff. Like, I was the example of
That's awesome.
the guy who's not going to play, but out there
Right.
giving the effort and all that stuff. And so it was just funny how that worked out. But yeah, those successes, and it'll even lead, I'll share it here after a little bit, but I tell people that my failures and inability to play sports ultimately led to my career
Right.
and being in sports.
awesome.
That's pretty cool.
And had another coach when I was in college, gut checked the team a little bit one time too, and basically told them all that you guys think you're good and all that, and baseball's gonna be in your life forever. You know, he's like, it's not. And he called them out and said, 10, 15 years from now, Daniel's gonna be the only one still in baseball.
Wow.
Because he kind of knew
Perspective, right? Yeah.
knew like the career path I wanted to take, and you know, and where I was going to hopefully try to go. And that stuff meant a lot to me, you know, because it's like, yeah, I'm not out there doing something on the field that helps the team win, but all the other stuff, but I still get to be around.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
Something I found out just recently, I had no idea you had involvement with the Arkansas Travelers.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
A little
So, like,
jealous. Just
what
a
do
little.
you do with them? How'd you get involved?
So yeah, the Travs is a really cool thing. You know, it's awesome to have minor league baseball in the state of Arkansas. Even, I mean, two options, you know, and we're kind of smack dab in the middle in Russellville, Atkins, to be able to go see the Travs or go see the Naturals.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually now technically worked for the Travs twice. In between my first and second year of grad school, I interned with them in the media relations area or whatever when Phil Elson was doing when he was their radio guy.
That's
And
awesome.
so I was basically Phil's intern, which was really cool. He let me get on the radio a couple times with him and things like that. But so I had that internship. It was really cool. Basically just had to work like the home stands. But at that part, I was doing like print out the stats, you know, update the game notes for him and things like that, like get stuff ready for the game. And then during the game, I would run like the scoreboard and, you know, different things, and then write the story afterwards and post it to the thing. So a lot of the similar things that I do now at Tech, but so that was really cool. And then last year was the first year that I went back because, it's an hour from Russellville to get down there and stuff. And I'm just like, I told my wife, I said, I really want to try to see if I can pick up like work in the press box, and just do some things up there as a cool kind of like little summer gig when I'm available. And her response was, so let me get this straight. You want to go do more work when you don't have to work? In athletics.
Work, though.
Exactly. And I'm like, but this isn't work. I actually enjoy doing this.
Yes.
So I went, I knew they hold these seasonal job fairs, usually about February, where they're trying to find like their game day workers and stuff like that. And so, a couple years ago, I saw the date, and I went down there to Little Rock and just went through a little interview process. And, you can get the seasonal jobs like in concessions or greeting or ticket, like all these different areas. And obviously I went to like just the press box area and stuff and talked to them, and, quickly, like they knew, like I was like, yeah, I've done all this. I can do all that. I can official score. I know baseball and all that stuff. So pretty much almost all the jobs up in the press box that we have, I'm able to do.
Right.
And so I could be scheduled to do them. And so we've got a guy whose name is Guy, funny enough.
A guy who's
got a
name
guy.
is Guy.
His name is Guy. He's awesome. And he schedules us out. He works in the press box. There's probably, I don't know, there's probably 12 of us, I think, maybe in the rotation of stuff. And he just reaches out and says, hey, upcoming homestand, what days can you guys work? And then he puts together the schedule. And so it's anything from doing like the scoreboard that is out there. They got a really great video board out there, official scoring, which is a lot of fun. This thing called data casting, which is that's the thing that if you follow any of the teams on the MLB app or MILB, like that stuff, that there's a person that's actually doing that.
That's
Really?
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do that. And then what's the fourth one? Scoreboard, official scoring. That one. That may be it.
Some important stuff, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
And
awesome.
it's cool. And like,
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of guys up there and we have a good time and, you just shoot whatever, conversations come up that are good.
Yeah.
Some aren't very good. You wouldn't want to say anywhere else. And, but again, it's just, you're at a ballpark, and that's always been a place that I've just loved being. It's just,
I know me and Chris, when we got to come there with you for that tournament game, we were both just like little kids.
yeah,
dude.
it's awesome.
Being in a press box, getting to go in the radio booth there, and then seeing you over there in the right next to us.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Something I'm never going to forget.
Oh, me either. No.
It's a lot of fun. And that was a great experience too. To be able to be at a minor league park and have a conference tournament was cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And you get to see, and that's a great thing about minor league baseball too, is, you got these prospects that come up and we're talking about that long road to get to the big leagues. And, there's some that do it quicker than others, but, Double A is kind of that perfect spot of that's where the big time prospects are going to go.
Yeah.
There's very rare that they're going to go from like single A to triple A, then the big leagues. They may jump them from double A to the big leagues.
Yeah.
But they most always will go do something in double A.
Yes.
So you get a chance to see some really, really exciting players.
Is that where most of your rehab people go to? Is that where most of your rehab stints are?
It depends. The Travs have been in an unfortunate situation just geographically with who their affiliate's been the last few years.
Don't get you started, Daniel.
I know. Between the Angels and now with the Mariners, that it just doesn't make a ton of sense for the big league club to send somebody to do a major league rehab
halfway across the country
in Arkansas when they can put them in their backyard in California or up in Washington. So you don't get as many big league, major league rehabs through there. But on the other side, some of the other teams will send some of their guys. And so you could kind of get a little bit there, but so that's the exciting part. And actually the year that I interned with the Travs, they joked about it all year in the press box. It was the year after Trout. So Trout was there the year before, and just anything, even like a home run hit a mile by the other team, and they would just be like, Trout would have caught that. Like everything was, Trout could have done that. Trout could have done this.
Trout would have caught that.
Yeah.
running joke.
So that type of stuff. And, if you think about it too, like, Julio Rodriguez now is up with the Mariners. He came through Little Rock. Cal Raleigh played for the Travs. And,
Wow.
so when you start really tracing guys' steps, and it's hard, from here, if you're not going to be a Mariners fan to kind of maybe keep up with that, but you have an opportunity to see some really, really cool, very talented people.
We've had one of our all-time favorite Razorback baseball players. He's moved on to AAA now, but Matt Cronin was recently pitching for
Dragon,
the Travs.
baby.
And then actually Caleb Cowley is still on the team now.
Yeah, he's starting to hit some bombs.
He's raking,
That
dude.
dude can rake. Yeah,
He's doing them on the road because it's hard to hit a home run and Dickie Stevens.
Yeah.
But it's cool to watch those guys and to see that progression. But it's just a cool little side gig. I mean, minimum wage job. It's not nobody's going to get rich doing it.
Right.
But
You're not doing it for the money.
You're at a ballpark,
no,
baby.
heck no. And it's an hour there, an hour back. Like the total time from when I leave, either I'm leaving my office or leaving from the house to when I get back home, it's about 6 hours total. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
You're
And
at a ballpark. Yeah.
and I'm fortunate that my wife is supportive enough, and she's like, "Yeah, go do it. Like that's something you enjoy." And
Yeah.
so it's so cool. All that, it's a cool experience, and I really hope that whatever issues they've got going with that they don't lose the team.
Yeah.
Because that would be
That'd be
a tough blow.
catastrophic. Yeah.
But yeah,
So what's your favorite part of the job? Game day, the stats, the media, the live streaming you do, like at Tech. What's your favorite part?
it's hard to nail it down. Because I was telling somebody the other day, that's always the hardest question that people ask. Not necessarily that, but like, what do you do?
Right.
Because
everything.
because it is
I've
so
watched
much.
it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's so many different things. A lot of those areas you touched on, either I'm doing or I have a very, very big hand in. But really for me, a lot of it just boils down to my favorite part is the end game and the stats. It really is. Like I tell my wife all the time, if all I had to do was do stats, or if I got paid the same, obviously.
Yeah.
But all I had to do
don't
was
take any money from me.
exactly. If all I had to do was stats, show up for the game, do the stats, and then bounce, and don't have to write anything, it'd be perfect. Because it's so much fun. I've always enjoyed stats and all that. Been interested in it and how to do it and the different programs we use to compile the stats and what is an actual
There you
stat.
go. Yeah.
And just having that awareness of it, and especially like a sport like baseball, where I'm able to be an official scorer, is like that's the person that dictates what the stats are for a sport that is subjective on is that a hit, is that an error?
Wow.
But having somebody that can discern and know, and you take everything into account, and you're not going to get them right all the time, but
Right.
where it's subjective and your opinion is the final one that matters.
Your opinion is this.
Is there pressure in
Yeah.
that for you?
A little bit, yeah. And for the most part, and again, Coach Dawson's awesome at Tech. Like, there's very few times that he has questioned something that we've called. And I like to think too that it's just because we're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And it's calling it down the middle. It's not really favorited one way or the other because people can, if you look at some stats from some programs, I'm not going to name any names, but you're like, those batting averages
That's
are awfully high.
Yeah.
Those ERAs are pretty low, and you guys give up quite a bit of runs. Those types of things. But he doesn't really question too much. The difference in minor leagues too is those players can appeal a decision, and even in major leagues,
That's right.
they can appeal a decision. And sometimes too, it's like you just look at it, and you have to make a call with what you see in the moment. And you try not to let things influence you, especially if it's like, oh, guy's got a no hitter going,
Right.
those types of things. So I'm always like, once that first clean hit happens on both teams, I'm like, all right, we're good.
We're good.
Even as awesome as it would be to like see one, and technically be like the official scorer.
Or even score one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're just like, man, I just hope like it's not like my opinion.
That poor
that
dude sitting up
sways it.
in the press box in Omaha the other day had to be
I
just
know.
like,
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just
getting
like,
bullied, man.
strike him out, please.
nobody talked to him either. I bet nobody's talking to that cat either up there in the,
No.
in the
Yeah.
press box.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
So
That's pure magic right there.
So that's probably the stat side is really what I enjoy. And like, if I ever stopped doing what I do, that would be something I would always want to do. I would
Yeah.
try to make myself available to any school within willingness of myself to drive to help out, to want to do the stats.
We talk about that a lot, me and Chris, about how
Yeah.
stats, especially in baseball,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the game within the game.
Yeah.
You know, that brings that part of the beauty of baseball to me.
Yeah.
Are those stats and that little chess match that's going on inside the greater game in every single pitch. And so I love that. Yeah.
And it's percentages and
There you go.
Analytics
and
yeah.
good old intuition and
Need more of that.
Yeah.
Need more of that. But
Yes.
yeah.
All right, so moving on to, what do you think about the direction of college athletics and like overall, like the direction it's heading, like all of college athletics?
It's at a crossroads for sure. And it's unfortunately in a situation that just people in charge of the NCAA or whatever, just the adults in the room, as people characterize it, they've allowed it to get to this point. I do think though that, athletes should be entitled to, fair compensation for what they do and what they provide. The university, just the unfortunate part of it is with NIL, it's not, a lot of them is, it's not what it's designed for. They're not getting paid for their name. They're using that to pay them a salary.
To play.
Basically. Yeah. Pay to play, which is what it boils down to.
You got to pay to play now.
Yeah. Which always occurred, it happened, but it was, obviously
$100 handshake.
Yeah. And stuff in a McDonald's sack at Tennessee and things like that.
Or give your mom a new Buick or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all that stuff was happening. And like, I still do believe in the student athlete part of it. Now I know there's more athletic students than there are student athletes, especially when you get into those really high level Power 4 type stuff. And those kids have a real chance at making good money professionally doing it. But at the Division II level, D3, and even also some lower level D1s, like it's, there is still value in getting that college education. Like, you can be really good at something, but again, where that coach in college, kind of gave that gut check to the team of, you think your sport's going to be there forever. It's not. So what is your backup plan for the rest of your life from 20 to 60? What are you going to do in that 40-year span where you're going to live a majority of your life?
Right.
So I think there's still a lot of value in that. And, a lot of it too, it's like, you look at any kind of job posting and they want at least a college degree. And it is really just like a checkpoint. But
a lot of jobs don't even care what it is,
exactly.
as long as you have the piece
Just
of paper.
have a degree.
Just have it. Just have it. And so it's definitely getting, college sports is just major big business. And I get it. But I really hope that there's some semblance of the NCAA that stays intact.
I agree.
Because I do think, and I listen to Dan Patrick's show every day, and he has the most like logical talk in sports ever. I'm sad he's going to retire in a couple of years, but they keep talking about and how he's projecting it, and I'm right there with him because I think it's right. That they're going to break off, like they're going to realize, like the SEC and Big Ten and all that, for football at least, maybe even men's basketball, that they don't need the NCAA. Like, and really the NCAA can't and really shouldn't govern those types of programs because they're just on a different stratosphere, because they're so much drastically different than what Arkansas State is playing with or what UCA is playing with, UALR. They're in a whole different category. So they probably should be set to the side and then ironically come back to what everything was before, and you got regional conferences again. That makes sense. Where you're not flying your softball team coast to coast to play a series because your football team is so good that you're in that other conference that doesn't make geographical sense.
That's right.
So it's definitely different in that regard. And like, I've kind of monitored it and, wonder what the trickle down is going to be. Because when it first started, NIL was like, okay, well, you really don't got to worry about it in Division II, because how many people are going to want to pay, whatever your quarterback or basketball player to come to whatever local business you've got in your relatively small town. But of course, that's just if you're going off general NIL and they're paying you because you're who you are.
Yeah.
But the the real like reality of it happened for me personally a couple years ago after the basketball team at Tech they won the conference they won the regular season, won the conference tournament, played super hard against the number one team in the country, lost in the opening round of that, but had them, if Talon, one of our star players, hadn't hurt his hand in the regular season finale, like who knows how far that team could have gone. There was not a single senior on that team. Not one. Everybody could have come back. And this was just a couple of years ago. So last year was the first year without him. But 3 of the starters went Division I.
Taylor included,
just like
right?
that.
Yeah.
And all that too, like not to say that as like a negative, because sometimes it makes sense for other people to do it. But it was just kind of like that gut check of like, you can't like invest in the team anymore because you don't know what your roster is going to be from year to year. And it's going to make it hard on fans to be fans, I think.
Me and Chris talk about this a lot, and I was going to ask you that. I was going to take you back you said 20-year-old self. I was going to ask your 12-year-old self earlier if what's going on today would have hurt your feelings back then. It would me.
Break you up.
A lot less to this point. It's getting there. Baseball's ramping up. But it'll be the last touched, I think. But to me personally, like I'm going to take football for an example. Man, Chris, we bleed Razorback red. We have our whole lives, man, until all this started.
Yeah.
With NIL, transfer portal, and it's gotten to the point now, man, that was always the lure of the Razorbacks. You knew those were your guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those were homegrown. A lot of them were homegrown, just guys who had a chip on their shoulder, or they were kids from Texas who were mad because Texas didn't offer them.
Yeah.
But now, fast forward to today, that special thing, that little magic nugget in here, that we're Arkansas. Those are our guys. It's gone.
Yeah.
And it's now, hey, I like Taylor. He's a good kid, man. A good quarterback. I enjoyed that. It was a great game.
Yeah.
But, man, that in here where it makes you sick, like what happened the other day in baseball.
Yeah, oh, gosh.
That feeling, which is a terrible, horrible feeling, but a great thing also.
Yeah.
It's not there with
It's
football.
not there anymore. You're like, well, there they go. They lost.
Watch the games. We support I don't support the team. We watch them, supporting them, watching them, and and the same with basketball. But like Eric said, like that, the passion is gone.
Yeah, and it's not only that passion, but it's hard to project.
Yeah,
because it's year to year. Like you can maybe be a fan of that team for 3 to 6 months now, as that team is going to currently start the year and end the year. And it's everywhere, and it sucks,
It's
because you could like build up that momentum and be like, all right, yeah, we weren't that great this year, but look at all those dudes that we got and how young they
all
were.
coming back.
Yeah, like you can start projecting and get excited, and now you're like, well, I hope we don't miss in the portal.
Yeah,
That's right.
And like you're renting kids, and it's.
I found myself last year specifically watching more NFL football than I ever have in my whole life because of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And it's essentially, like the way it's tracking, especially big time college football. It's going to essentially be like minor league football to the NFL.
I hate that.
With like salaries and things like that. And then now like you kind of see it too, to where the grown-ups in the room are starting to want to kind of have that pushback on, okay, yeah, as a player, you guys are now getting this stuff and you can demand and kind of, dictate your terms. But on us, now we're going to look at it as if you're not performing to our expectations or to that dollar amount, you're going to give some of that back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And things like that. Or, like that, the kid who went to from Hawaii, went to UCLA. Like those types of things, to where it's not, the commitments get broken, and it's just, they're not really commitments anymore. You're just, there's got to be better guardrails on it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that does come. And, and I'm not saying I want it to go back to the old ways and stuff like that, but because coaches could leave at any time and all that stuff. And it's just kind of a little bit of a course correction, but just at least to get it to where it's somewhere to where the fans aren't affected.
Yeah.
I was bummed out when I found out that those players weren't coming back.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, I remember we were up in Mankato, and, Talon was hurt. You knew he wasn't 100%. and that was the number one team in the country. They ended up winning the national championship, and they could have beat them. And I remember thinking, like, and even like when they won, but you're just like, oh, these guys could come back and just imagine what they could do next year with everybody back, you know, and be even better and go further. And then that doesn't happen. And then I remember too thinking after that, I'm like, I'm glad they won the conference championship when they did.
Right.
Because throughout that year, I just, in the back of my head, I was like, okay, if it doesn't have, because they were chasing, I think, Southeastern throughout most of the year. And it's like, well, if they don't get it this year, they're going to definitely do it next year.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the old fan mentality that you had. And
we've talked.
You can't have that anymore.
Exactly. I mean, me and Chris talk about it all the time that we hope, we pray and we hope, like that little kid hog fan in us hopes that Dave Van Horn gets that national title.
Oh my gosh.
Because that he is still in here. He's still that magical, you know, Razorback feeling for us. And I'm afraid that it's starting to get into baseball more and more transfer portal, more.
It is.
And I want him to win one before it all kind of breaks down.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And too, like a program like theirs, they are benefiting from it too. So there is some benefits. There's pros and cons to it. And your team can benefit from it. But it's just that when you're that passionate of a fan and it goes against you. Another one, I was, I grew up in New Mexico, and college basketball is way bigger than football out there. Way bigger. And they had Rick Pitino's son, Richard Pitino, as their coach. In the last couple of years, they had so much success, made it to the NCAA tournament. Like, that's what those fans are craving and dying for. And then not long after they get beat out, he gets the job at Xavier.
Gone.
And he's gone. And the whole team's gone. You know, and then it's just like, and then you just see it online, and those folks are just like, you know, it's just, you see an entire fan base just shattered.
Yeah.
You can't do from the highest to high. No, it's where we're at. And I just hope that it at some point levels out to where you can get to a point to where, even if it's, you get to transfer one time, you know, and be eligible right away. Like
some kind of parameters.
Exactly. Because the kids that are going to 5 schools in 5 years.
It's ridiculous.
It's getting way up, man.
That's tough.
Can you imagine being a Hog fan like we were back in the day? You remember D-Mac, right? You were around then. Okay. Yeah. So let's just fast forward. Let's take those heroes of our past, throw them into today. We wouldn't have D-Mac but for a year if we got him at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying he wouldn't stay. I'm just saying the
offering
odds,
more money.
The odds of us holding on to Matt Jones, Darren McFadden, Quinn Grovey, those legends that I grew up.
Peyton Hillis, all those dudes.
Yeah, all those guys. It's just, there ain't no way a Felix Jones or a Peyton Hillis today, in today's world, I'm not talking about them individually, but like them, would sit and not be the man on a team anymore.
It's harder for those to do it.
Yeah. I would almost wish, and I don't get off this, but I'm serious. And we have another group text, our Hogs by 90 crew. I'm always telling them, I would rather, and I'm serious when I say this, I would rather Arkansas football never win anything in Division I football anymore. If this is what it's going to be, dude, I'd say screw it. Let's drop down to FCS and give me a bunch of Arkansas homegrown 2-star dudes with chips on their shoulder that want to be Hog. Now, of course, that means once they did that, they'd move on to Division I once they But
never
you know
ending.
what I'm saying? I want that back. And I know Hunter Yurchek's listening to us right now. So, Hunter,
he's
do something about it. You're killing me, Smalls.
That's what's gravitated us. I know I can speak for Eric on this too, because we talked about it. Us gravitated more towards D2 sports, because I know it affects them, but it's not affecting D2 sports as much as it is these massive schools. You know, like
I remember me and Chris stepped on campus when we got to do baseball for y'all, a couple years ago. So much fun, man. What a blessing.
Oh, you're invited back.
If you, man, just get, once that salary's right, NIL, baby. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. So when we talked about it open, we felt it and we talked about it. This is it. This is what the Razorbacks used to feel like to me. And they still do in baseball, but no other sports, they don't feel like that to me anymore. Yeah. Watching Tech play, watching those kids on that baseball field spill their guts and the emotion and the passion. And it's not just the constant over the top, look at me, like Tennessee baseball, that kind of thing, or none of that. It's none of that. It's just
Yeah.
the love
Pure
of the
passion
game,
for the
dude.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and a lot of that too. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. They say like stuff rolls downhill. It's positive and negative, and like program like Arkansas, where you got Dave Van Horn that is adapting to the current landscape, but he's not compromising himself.
No.
And you could see that still in their program and how they carry themselves. And I mean, the two just brutal ways that they have lost in the College World Series.
it's a whole podcast episode by
I
itself.
know. But the thing about it, and this is so much to his credit, you just look at him, because of course they put the camera on him. His reaction to each of those just gut-wrenching plays is phenomenal.
It goes back to what you said at the beginning, though. He's that level dude. Like,
Yes, he's Dave Van Horn, no matter what.
He doesn't get low. He's just that steady Eddie.
And he
Like,
loves those kids.
Oh, absolutely. And like the kid came in and was apologizing. He's telling him, "What do you have to apologize for?" Like
we got
cry, dude.
102 putouts.
yeah,
You gonna make me cry, dude?
yeah. Like just stuff like that. And so like that is what's still. So if coaches are able to still have who they are be a part of the DNA of their programs, those are the ones that are going to continue to be the ones you can pull for. And Coach Dawson at Tech, in my opinion, is one of those that does it, that still does. And you go after those types of kids that are going to do it. They might not be more talented than somebody else on another team.
Yeah.
But, you'd rather go to war and battle with guys that are going to have your back than ones that are out there for themselves. But yeah, that's again the beauty of sports.
Yeah.
Going back to it, I mean, you could have the highest of highs and win championships and all that, and just feel like you're on top of the world, and then have crushing defeats.
You can be
Baseball
Arkansas.
will rip your soul out. if you
It's
let
so
it, dude.
bad.
Just one little moment before you move on, you literally nailed it. I don't think there's a team in the history of sports, I'm probably missing something, that hurts like Arkansas fans do. Can we
I believe it
invent
now.
any more? What'd you say?
I believe it now.
Yeah, dude, it's literally the most. I can't think of any more. If there's a more painful way to lose, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Before we move on from baseball, if you're in the River Valley and you haven't been to a Tech baseball game, you should go.
Yeah.
It's free. It's fun entertainment. It's an absolute blast.
It's a great product,
We
man.
have a good time.
Great product on the field.
Yep.
There's no, you can't go to a Razorback baseball game without spending $500 for your family.
Nope.
And then you're sitting in the hog pen. And if you live in South Arkansas, you got to pay for a room, all this stuff. You spend $1,000 easy. But if you're on a budget or anything, you want to go have some good, clean, free fun, Tech baseball game is it.
It's a beautiful facility.
Beautiful.
Beautiful seat. The seating arrangement's great. It's always shady.
it's
great
good.
class program.
Yeah.
And it's baseball.
First class,
so,
baby.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things too about my job that I really I take a lot of pride in and take it to heart of having a good fan experience for people, not only for baseball, but all the other sports too. A good family friendly atmosphere. Even though during pregame, so I don't know half the songs that are playing, it's the players, what they like and stuff. It's edited, but it's not what I would necessarily listen to. But, to where you can get a good value and go watch, good college athletics and kids compete, and people that live close to you is really awesome too. But that's always in the back of my head of like, I want to create a good atmosphere to where people are going to want to come back, and that's what you do. We have so much fun at baseball. Like I don't know, Coach Dawson will give me way more credit than I deserve. But he's like, man, we're good at home because of the stuff that we do up there and just the music, the engagement, and like the players love playing at home and, turning that into a home field advantage for them the last few years has been huge.
It's awesome.
We would talk about the crowds there.
Yeah.
There were some of those games.
Huge
We called those
crowds.
games. We looked down at the crowd. We're like, look at this, dude.
Yeah.
This
Packed
is beautiful.
in
Look
here,
at the
man.
weather. Look at these fans. The burnt or the grass areas
Yeah.
in between the seats.
Yeah.
Everybody's in their lawn chairs and stuff. What an atmosphere, man. That's
Even this past season, I've noticed some people like the bleachers in the outfield were had several people in them at times, and there's just the product's good. I can only speak for baseball. That's what I've watched the most at Tech live, and stuff. But you do an amazing job, man.
I appreciate it. And that's the focus. We want people to to be able to come out and enjoy it and knowing like that money and people can't, like, even if we had professional sports team, like to be able to get up the money to go and pay for parking and tickets and concessions, and that bill runs up pretty high quickly.
And I think that's another thing that we're going to get off. That'll take us long into another subject, but it's another thing that's hurting, like the traditions and the wholesomeness and the magic of college sports is kids now don't grow up.
Yeah.
Those are the Razorbacks. Those are my guys. That's my team.
Yeah.
My parents used to take me when I was a kid, so I'm going to be a hog when I get a chance. That's gone.
Oh.
And so, anyway.
Yeah.
All right, last little segment here.
Okay.
How did you come to know Jesus, and did you grow up in a Christian home? How did that come to pass there?
Sorry, we're just not getting into this. That's part of it.
No, it's good.
It's definitely not a direct path, but I was fortunate to grow up in a house that were Christians. My parents divorced when I was really young, but my dad was, I guess, more the one that kind of maybe led that a little bit more, and unfortunately, after that divorce, I didn't live with him majority of the time. So it kind of fell a little bit on the back burner some with my mom, and we couldn't really find a good fit, in church, or at least that was kind of the, I'll say like the excuse we used.
Right.
To not really get involved or really find a church home, but kind of always there, just in the back of my mind, growing up and around it, and even to the people you surround yourself with, friends and stuff like that, their families maybe share those same values or were Christians, and two, just kind of, not ever feeling comfortable being in trouble.
Yeah.
Like growing up, like that's, like there's feels like there's some kids that just go out and just are maniacs and create so much havoc, and
Yeah.
they don't care. They're just gonna be in trouble their whole life and stuff. But like not feeling comfortable in that and maybe that pressure and stuff. But it's always there in the back of your mind. And it was just something that you could lean on.
Yeah.
And I've had times growing up where it was more, stronger in my faith than what I was before. And you kind of let maybe some other influences get in the way and stuff. But
As we all have.
absolutely. And that's part of the beauty of it is, that nobody's perfect, and you have to remind yourself of that. And like, even though you're like, I know what I've done. I know what I just did.
Yeah.
That's
a fact.
how can somebody still provide me with forgiveness and grace, and all that stuff? But those are the truths that you have to remind yourself of.
And even forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Huge.
And then kind of, one of the biggest things was you start looking at that, and that was a big thing that I wanted to have in my life growing or getting older and having a family, was I wanted to have a wife that was a believer and raise a family that's going to be Christian and follow God and Christ, and hopefully be better than I am at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was always kind of what I wanted. That would be like my perfect scenario. And I really have that. My wife is amazing. She's, honestly, even still to this day, like I'll tell her like, I think she's stronger spiritually than I am in a lot of ways.
She's an amazing woman. Yeah.
And, a lot of that's a testament to who she is, but it also is an acknowledgement of some of my shortcomings, but it also too, like, makes me want to
Be better.
be a little bit better. There's it's a gut punch every time it comes on because it really hits me in the face. But that Sanctus Real song, Lead Me.
Lead me. Oh,
It's
dude.
a good
Yeah.
song, dude.
Woo.
That's tough, bro.
That,
I know what
because
you're
I'm
talking
like,
about,
it's
man.
just like that one. It's just square hit where you need to be hit, and I'm like, man, I'm failing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to be. And so, but like that's kind of what I keep in my mind of where I want to go, and I want to lead my family and my kids. Like you just can see it in young kids, the innocence that they have, and being involved in church, and being able to take to what I do for a job and a career, those skills translate to me serving in church too,
Right.
And doing the production in our live stream. So that's a great way that I've been able to fit in and find a subgroup there, and really just taking family importantly and placing a high value on it has led us to other groups and segments within our church. But, you know, I don't have that in it. I'm almost jealous of it too, in certain ways, of those people that their testimony is like, I was the worst sinner in the world. I did all this. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and, you know, I was abusing my wife or whatever. Just all those like really hard stories. And you could clearly see that turning point
Right.
of salvation, and where they're obviously a different person after that. I don't necessarily feel like I have that. Maybe there is more of a point where people can notice it, but then also too, I kind of pray, like, I hope that there eventually is that point too, because it's easy enough to profess, you know, your faith and everything else. But if you're hesitant to be strong in it or bold in it, and the way you go about your daily life outside of church isn't reflecting, somebody's not going to know who you say you are, or what you would identify as.
Yeah.
So if you do hit that turning point, and it really does become a big part of who you are, and you have that change.
Well, the Bible says, you know, I'll show you my faith by my actions.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, you say that, you know, you kind of sometimes you wish you had that, but like, your story is unique because there's not a lot of people that have that story like you have, that it's basically always been a part of your life, you know, and I don't want to get into my story, but it was a part of my life when I was a kid, but I strayed off and went down the rabbit hole of drugs and all that stuff, you know, but you being able to stay free from all that is amazing, and a testament to who you are as a human and a man and all those, and I think it's amazing.
I appreciate it. That's not to say that even though it wasn't drugs or alcohol or anything like that, there's still those areas of sin that, you know, have been a struggle and addictions and things like that you still battle with. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, one of the hard things I think for some people to grasp with is, you know, that moment of being saved. It's like, okay, am I really that's it? That's all I got to do? You know, and like, because it feels like you're having to constantly do it or try to be saved again and again and again. But really, I guess it's not necessarily that, because you do it the one time, you know, and if you had that pure heart in it, that's all that God requires of us. But then we've got to check ourselves and get back and lead back. And
my pastor always equates it to, like, you know, we're saved and we're righteous. We get saved, we become righteous instant, boom, like you just said. But then the process after that, the sanctification process, you know, he equates it to like peeling an onion. You know, like God may say, well, hey, Daniel, I need you to give up this or do better in this area. You peel that layer off, and what's underneath, it's sticky and gooey, and it may hurt, and it, you know, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
But then once that all dries up and heals up and you're good with that, then he may say, what about this area?
Right.
Peels it again. You know, and I always love sharing that analogy because I think it's amazing, and that's how it works. You know, and it's good.
It's like an athlete or something, or a professional athlete perfecting their craft. You never stop.
Never stop.
You gotta continue to work at it, because if you don't, you're not going to get any better.
The Bible says you're being perfected until you make it to heaven.
Yeah.
There you go.
You're not going to be perfected on here on the earth.
No.
You know.
No.
That's right.
You know,
And I've been caught up in that mentality, like you said, of like trying to be perfect, or like almost like a religious spirit of like, I have to do more and be more and read more and pray more, and we should be striving to do those things, but that's not the reason you're saved.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in that, you know, that never-ending circle of doing that before.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
a lot
want to
of
point out
that,
something you said a minute ago too about your little ones and getting them in church and all that, dude. I don't think you realize, and I don't think any of us do, how big a deal that is, man, and how cool that is that you've got those little ones in that church house.
Yeah.
I've seen them in there just smiling and grinning and, you know, carrying on, and, you know, man, because this world, it's after them from increasingly earlier and earlier and earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And so, dude, that's huge, brother. So props to you there, you know?
Yeah. You know, and I appreciate it, and, you know, but that's just something that my wife and I were like, look, this is something that's going to be important, you know, and we both serve in different areas, and, you know, we're not 100% in church attendance and stuff, but, you know, it still is a priority.
Yeah.
And we try to make it that way. And that's kind of my focus now. Again, like I want them to be better than I am in everything,
Yes.
Amen.
you know, or, you know, and even just to go alongside them, you know, cause like, I think that's also cool. Like there's people that have those testimonies of, you know, their kids and like their parents weren't believers or something like that. And just like through that relationship, you know, they strengthened through Christ and that, and it does so much for the house and for your family. That it's just really cool. And like, I love the fact too, that our kids love going into that building.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's
They
not
don't dread it.
exactly. It's not
You planted something in there.
yeah, I have to, they love it. They enjoy it. You know, and we want to just continue to support them and knowing too, like, you know, just like how God treats us as his children, like you kind of take a little step back sometimes. Like, all right, you're getting pretty close to the stove there. You shouldn't touch that.
Yeah.
What do you mean don't touch it? You know, and then
Yeah.
told you, you know,
Yeah.
so like it's all of that reenacting and just trying to be, I want to be the best father I could possibly be. I've got a lot of work to do to be a great husband to my wife. Because there's times that I feel like I'm a better dad than I am a husband. And so like, there's just those things where if you don't have a faith background or that's not a part of your life, I don't know if you have that conviction or feeling like you need to do something different.
Yeah. That's good.
So it's important to us. I really I couldn't see it any other way. It's almost hard to know that there are people that don't, you know, they're just either they're atheist or just, you know, it's just kind of like, you're like, wow, I don't get that. That's so foreign. You know, but it happens and it's out there obviously. But some of those people too, like you can have really good, solid relationships with them
Yeah.
as a believer. And that was one thing, you know, early on and even more so now, like I kind of realize a lot too, is like, it's easy to fellowship with like-minded people and stuff. And you can kind of get in a little bit of comfort zone, but to really help impact and make change, like you got to be friends with non-believers,
Yeah.
you know, and show them, you know, just by your actions, how you live out. And like, cause they're gonna be
Yes.
like, there's something different about that dude. Like, what is it? You know, and they ask that question, then you have those little opportunities that come in. And what's cool too about sports, to kind of bring it back a little bit too, is like, there's so many different personalities and backgrounds of people that come together to comprise a team in any year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to see a lot that have, you know, a handful that I know are really strong spiritual, you know, kids or athletes, young adults and stuff. And then to see them bring alongside some of their teammates
Awesome.
is really, really cool.
Yes.
And I love at church at New Life, seeing all the athletes that come through.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. And I love seeing it grow. And it's cool to see them kind of in another setting outside. And hopefully too, that, you know, I want them to hopefully see him like, oh, that's cool. Like that guy who does my stats or does whatever I do, you know, like he's out there and this is what's important to him on a Sunday, you know, morning as well. And, it's amazing all the impact that you can have. And, again, with the team, just all of those, you have a chance to make an impact every day and, just try to get it right more times than you get it wrong.
Yes, that's it.
I like that, dude. Like get it right more times than you get it wrong.
Yeah. Hopefully the math is on the good side of that.
I think it's so important too that if you get into a church, if you find a church, you know, like don't just sit in the back pew, like get involved and serve. And like I've been serving ever since I've been back in church, you know, and it's helped hold me accountable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like when there's times when I'm in like, man, I really don't feel like going on this Sunday night or whatever, you know, it's like, I got to get up and go because they're counting on me.
They're expecting me there. Yeah.
The team mentality kind of thing, you know, but like, I know we shouldn't view it like that, but I do sometimes and it helps me, you know, and once I get there, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm here, you know, like.
And a lot of that too, when we battle with that, it's low hanging fruit for the enemy, for the devil to plant those seeds of like, no, I mean, you're too tired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't need to go. That's a drive. You know,
yeah,
it'll be fine. You can miss one. Like, and that's just where we're constantly attacked. And a lot of times we find that when we have those, I'm sure you feel this way too. Like when you have that, you're like, all right, I'm going to go. Like you kind of have that mini battle, you win and you go, and that was the message you needed to hear.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly
in
right,
that
brother.
thing, like, it's
Every
just,
time that happens. Yeah.
it's like, geez, like, why was it such a struggle at the beginning?
Yeah.
But it's, you know, that's just what you have to deal with. And, you know, I haven't had the opportunity, I shouldn't say the opportunity, because I probably had numerous opportunities, but really haven't had too much pleasure of really bringing along like a non-believer, really, of like somebody that I knew, like, and you just kind of lead them through and all that stuff and everything else. But like some of the people, especially like when they're new in their faith, you know, like one of the things I want to be able to tell them all is like, it gets hard from here.
Yeah.
It was hard before, probably, because
Yeah.
whatever it is that you were, you know, dealing with, sin or just whatever situation, it's great. It changes your life. But then now all of a sudden you're a big target.
Yeah.
You used to not have to be worried
Yeah.
about, because you were doing what the devil and all that
Yeah.
wanted you to do anyways, to kind of self-destruct your life. And then when you kind of say no and turn around to that, then you're just like, oh, now I got to work harder.
Now we got to go after it
Exactly.
more. Yep.
You know,
I had
and
the
so-
opportunity to go to Pope County Detention Center, and this older guy that I was with, he was leading this guy in the sinner's prayer, you know, all that. When we got done, he said, "Now you just did the hard part, or the easy part.
Yeah.
Now it gets hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now it's boots on the ground kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know, like it's not, people think that following Jesus is rainbows and butterflies, all that and stuff, but it's not.
Mm-mm.
And things like getting your butt in the church, serving. I think, what is it? Undaunted Life. He's always talking about the church needs strong men to be
Serving.
involved, serving,
Yes.
being active. And he said, if you're at a church where dudes aren't involved,
Yeah.
You're at the wrong
you're in the
church.
wrong church.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so, but doing that, getting up, getting in the church, getting involved,
Mhm.
makes that battle that you talked about, where the enemy's coming at you. That's equipping you with the tools to fight
Yes.
it and win.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in doing things like this,
Yeah. It does give you a good support system too, to go back to,
there you go.
you know, like we talked about how guys, you could think, oh, I'm the only one going through this. You know, I'm the only one going through this. But no, like the reality is, if you're able to open up a little bit and be like, man, I'm struggling. I haven't been feeling anything going to church. If you got a group of guys that, you know, share the same values and, you know, spiritual stuff with you, they can help encourage you and bring you
And I'm
along.
like,
And,
dude, I am too.
Yeah.
This happened to me last week,
Yeah,
or whatever
exactly.
the issue is, you know. And
it's, you know, at New Life, the smaller groups, it's a relatively big church, obviously, but like the way we have like these life groups, smaller groups, or whatever you get through, and just various things of different life stages and stuff and all that. But, and the core behind that is just like, you're doing life together.
That's right.
yeah,
And that's really what we're called to be, really a lot as Christians, is to have that community, to be able to rely on each other for encouragement, even for correction too at times, which is the hardest thing probably to do.
That's right.
Either to give the correction or have it be given to you.
we don't spend most of our time inside the four walls of a church
Exactly.
building. It's outside.
Yeah.
You said something earlier, and to kind of bring this back here, is talking about earlier, we were talking about you in your earlier life, or whatever, talking about anxiety, and you know, I'm the only one that's struggling with this.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, you ain't.
No, you ain't.
That's what the church will do for you, and you realize, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
But that's what the enemy wants you to think.
For
They
sure.
want you to think that.
That
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
isolated in whatever you're feeling and whatever you're going through and dealing with.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I'm glad we're beyond it as far as we are, but that's probably the worst thing that came from COVID,
Yeah.
was all the isolation that we were
Yeah.
forced into.
That's
and,
true.
We're still trying
you know,
to find out
and,
that.
yeah. And my wife, you know, being a school teacher in middle school, like starting to see those kids that are going through that just, it wasn't natural. It wasn't normal to be as secluded as we were.
Yeah.
And now kind of like just getting out of that and living through that. And just, I can't imagine being a young person, like for older folks like us, like it was like, at first, especially, it was like a couple weeks off. I could play some video games,
Yeah.
watch some,
Nice.
catch
It was
up
the
on some
bomb.
shows.
It was the bomb.
Oh
at
yeah,
first,
you know,
dude.
and then
Yeah.
you're like, but then you start really craving that community, and you realize that. And not to get too super like morbid or anything like that, but that's probably why one of the biggest punishments you can get in prison is isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, solitary.
We weren't designed for isolation. We were designed for relationship with God, and relationship with each other.
Yep.
You know, and isolation is a huge that's what the enemy wants to do to men is isolate them and get them to not be the leader in their home and that they're failing and all this stuff. And then you take out the man, then you can take out the family.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yep. There you go.
Absolutely. So
That's
hopefully
a whole other
it's
episode too. There,
Yeah.
I know it.
What's
Yeah,
going on since COVID. Yeah.
yeah, and hopefully it
Yeah,
doesn't
don't get me
get
started
pinged
there.
for anything crazy.
No.
But no, that just goes back to just really the point of the relational nature that we need to have, and not feel like you got to go about it alone, because we don't.
Man, that's good stuff.
And like it's actually, it's kind of cool too, because my son, he's 6 and he's really close to getting to where he's going to make that decision. But he's just like, so he's battling with right now. He's just like, I got to ask Jesus into my heart. I thought he was always there. You know what I mean? And so, cause that's kind of what we've told him and stuff. And so just, you could see those gears working. He's trying to make sense of it. And you're like, yeah, dude, he's always there, but you got to do this part too. But just knowing that, hey, that is the relational thing. And I need to remind myself more about this, but that a relationship with Christ can be just as easy as what we're doing now.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be super formal, like you don't have to do a prayer the right way. And, it could be just talking to God and being as real as,
Yep.
As you need to be. And another one that my kids are, it's funny, talk about it probably too much, but, he was even, my son too, was like, Dad, did you know that God knows everything that you're going to do? And all that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, isn't that pretty scary too? And that, I didn't think much of it. It was kind of like a throwaway joke line for me. But then it like a day later or so, just like, he went back to, he's like, why'd you say that? And I was like, well, I was like, cause it's cool cause he knows what you're going to do. I was like, but it's also scary cause he knows what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you still might do something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
I was like, but then it was that a nice little teaching moment to come back to, but he still loves you,
Yes.
and that type of stuff. So it's just, I don't know. Kids are awesome.
Isn't it great?
I don't want more, but kids are awesome. We got 2.
We're done.
We got 2, but it's cool to see it, happen for them.
That's right.
Yeah, love it.
Daniel, man, thank you for your time. Thank
Yeah,
you for
appreciate it.
coming on the show. You had a lot of great insights on what you do.
Thank you.
A lot of great insights on your faith, and we really appreciate you coming on. So we do a thing here every time we close an episode, we close in prayer.
Yeah.
So I'll do that, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Yep.
Heavenly Father, we thank you, Father, for Daniel. We thank you for his story. We thank you for his life. We thank you for what he's doing for these young athletes and what he's doing for his family, what he's doing for the kingdom, Father. I pray, God, that for men listening, Father, I pray that they will get a nugget from Daniel, Father, that will convict their heart, Father, to make a change if they need to, Father, and address an issue and grow as leaders in their home. I pray, God, you lead each and every one of us by your Holy Spirit. Guide us, Father. Direct us. And we love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.